Yeah, so I wanted to thank everybody for joining today. My name is Tony Cai. I am a director of sales engineering here at Nerdio. Been at Nerdio nearly 6 years now, and I'm located in New York. And I'm actually sitting in a Microsoft office in New York City, next to a room full of other MSPs that I'm about to do the same webinar twice in front of them live. So today we're going to talk about deploying and managing Intune and endpoints with Nerdio. So wanted to kind of start by talking about Nerdio's mission, right? So if you're not familiar with Nerdio, Nerdio's mission is to empower MSPs to build successful cloud practices with Microsoft Cloud, right? So when we started this journey many years ago, we focused mostly on Azure infrastructure and Azure Virtual Desktop. But in the last year and a half, we started developing tools around all the other parts of the Microsoft stack that MSPs use every single day, right? So this is sort of the diagram, right? So if you look at when the company was born, we were managing Azure infrastructure and virtual desktops. And today in 2024, we're managing endpoints with Intune, identity with Entra ID, SaaS apps with M365. And last week at NerdioCon, we released a bunch of capability around security and with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, right? So if you're not familiar with Nerdio, it's a single tool that lives in Azure that allows you to manage multiple tenants across multiple customers and helps you streamline and simplify the way you deploy stuff, manage stuff, price things out, right? It's got features in there that helps you lower costs, and the whole thing is sort of workflow powered, meaning there's different steps and workflows you can build within the product to help make sure that people are doing the things in the right order, right? So that's cloud management for the modern MSP. And so let's talk about what Intune is, right? So Intune is Microsoft's native RMM, sort of built to manage Windows devices, Macs, iOS, Androids, Chromes, and Ubuntu Linux endpoints. Now, Intune came out actually in 2010. Originally, it was made for mobile devices. But around 2016, 2017, we started seeing Microsoft include laptops and desktops as a mobile device as well. And so now you have this RMM like tool that Microsoft has called Intune that is likely already included in the licensing you already own, right? So Intune is a la carte license you can buy for $7, but most people don't buy the a la carte $7 SKU. They buy the Microsoft 365 Business Premium SKU for $20 if you do NCE. So if you have a client with M365 Business Premium, you already have all the rights to use Intune, right? So it's a great replacement for domain controllers. More and more we're seeing customers move their workloads into the cloud in other areas besides their desktop computers, right? So if you have like QuickBooks is a good example, right? QuickBooks has always been on premise for many, many years, and in the last 7 years, they've leaped into QuickBooks Online, and every single day it's getting better. And we're seeing that same journey with third-party applications modernizing themselves to become SaaS applications. So as more applications become more SaaS-based, most MSPs are looking at their domain controllers and asking themselves, well, why do I really even need one anymore, right? If all I want to do is manage group policies and make sure that devices get managed and people can log in using a unified identity, well, Intune can do all that and then some, right? So a lot of people are moving away from domain controllers as they go end of life and choosing to unjoin their devices from the legacy domain controller and then simply join it into Intune and start using Intune to manage everything. So now I talked about how domain controllers have this thing called group policy. We've used it for now 20, 25 years. But Intune, they have different types of policies, right? So these are some high level differences, right? So if you look at a configuration profile, that's actually most similar to a group policy. You have things like conditional access, which are policies made to kind of block people access to certain applications or devices. So I'm going to actually show you throughout today's session demos on how to actually create these policies. I'll talk through some of these policies. I'll show you how to actually use Intune or Nerdio to really empower you to actually do a lot with Intune overnight, right? So a lot of people know that Intune is the future, right? But for some reason, we're scared to kind of start. Maybe we don't know the steps to kind of maybe enroll a device. So I'm going to show you all those things today. But we're going to focus on configuration profiles and conditional access today. But there's other policies such as security baselines, right? So what does it mean for a device to be secure from Microsoft, right? What does it mean for a device to be compliant? right? So maybe you make some rules to say if a device hasn't been updated or hasn't updated Windows updates in 15 days, then that device is deemed uncompliant, and then you can decide what to do with an uncompliant device. So you can maybe have a conditional access policy that says a device who isn't compliant maybe can't access virtual desktops or can't access Azure files or can't access Office Suite, right? And then and Microsoft has different types of updates as well, right? So you have feature updates, quality updates, and driver updates that are now baked into Intune. So unlike using a third-party RMM where you can manage all your Windows updates through that, Intune now has Windows updates built in. And mobile application, mobile device management, basically RMM over mobile devices. That's exists from day one. So we're going to talk about that as well. All right. So on the left side, on the right side here, you have all the different types of devices you can manage. And today we're going to show demos of how to manage sort of a Windows device from start to finish. Right. So I want to talk about what is an endpoint. An endpoint is Microsoft's terminology for really any device that touches an end user is sort of considered an endpoint. So including your physical devices, desktops, laptops, mobile devices, BYOD, and even virtual desktops are considered endpoints. Right. So any device or virtual device that interfaces with the end user is sort of called an endpoint. Now, is Microsoft Server an endpoint as well? Well, traditionally, no, right? Microsoft Server is not an endpoint, but with Intune, you can actually have some sort of limited management over servers as well, because you're sort of bridging the gap between endpoint management and device management as well. So you're going to do certain things with Intune on servers as well, and more capability is going to come out with Windows Server 2025. So now Microsoft makes a distinction between corporate-owned devices and bring your own device, right? So if you have a Office PC or a laptop issued by the company, that could be a corporate device. But we certainly access, Outlook and stuff from our personal devices, right? And so they're sort of considered the BYOD devices, or maybe you have a MacBook at home; those are BYOD devices. So there's different ways to manage different types of devices, but more specifically, there's more control over a corporate-owned device. As opposed to sort of somebody's BYOD device, but there is some control over BYOD devices, right? So besides managing policies in Intune, you can also use Intune to deploy line of business applications as well, right? So imagine a world where you have a device, right? Again, no domain controller. They could be anywhere in the world. They don't need to be a VPN into the network to be able to use line of business apps and do things like that. So you can use Intune to sort of manage apps as well, to deploy apps from scratch. And I'll show you two methods to do that in today's demo. And if you guys joined us last month, Vadim, our CEO, went through using our unified app management. We'll stick a link into the chat if you guys missed that. It's a really cool episode to watch of our webinar. But today we're going to focus more on the native Intune application deployment capabilities, right? Less our own. Now, if you guys are sort of looking to start and you haven't really enrolled a device before, it's actually quite simple. Again, today I'm going to focus on sort of the Windows method of doing it, but those are quick links to enrollment guides for different operating systems. You got Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android right there, and we can probably paste that in the chat as well. Okay, so again, more and more line of business apps are going SaaS-based, and more MSPs are looking for domain controllerless alternative way to pretty much manage the devices, and Intune's your answer for that, right? But the problem is, managing Intune per each client is a very tedious task, right? There's a lot of initial tenant setup and configuration you need to do, and then you need to figure out what your MSP baselines are, right? So once I enroll the physical device, what do I want in that device, right? Do I want to lock down, OneDrive? Do I want to block certain things from Edge from working? Do I want to push the SSID and password directly onto that device? You can do all that with Intune, but to do it for each client, an engineer has to go into each tenant and create these policies one by one, right? And do it every single time for each customer you onboard, and that's sort of a very difficult thing to do at scale, and to do precisely the same every single time, right? So that's really where Nerdio comes in and helps you in multiple facets of managing Intune and managing endpoints. Again, today's full rest of the session is going to be a lot of demos and stuff. So if you guys have any questions along the way, just drop them in the Q&A section. Chris is going to try to answer as much of them as possible, and then we have time at the end. We can kind of post some questions up to be answered live. All right, so how do I enroll a device? So if you've never done it before, it's actually quite simple. So what I've prepared is actually a VM running in Azure that I'm going to actually remote into and show you guys how to actually manage the device. So I've created a Windows 11 machine. It's Windows 11 Pro, nothing special about it, inside of Azure. Now, this could be a physical on-prem computer. It doesn't matter. It's the same. I'm just going to simply connect to it over 3389 right now. Now, I've created this environment just temporarily so I can destroy it really quick after. So yes, 3389 is exposed to the internet. I'm okay with that for now. But I'm going to go and log into this Windows 11 Pro device. Okay, so it's a brand new Windows 11 machine. I've never logged into it before. You can see once I log in, you're going to see that the welcome wizard pop up. But other than that, it's a regular Windows 11 device. Now, if you have Windows 10, the enrollment is very similar. Now, there's different types of enrollments, right? If you're allowing your end customer to enroll, if you're, if you buy a laptop for your client and you bring it to your MSP's bench to kind of set everything up first, now you guys can do this, but I'll show you an alternative way you guys can manage this as well. Okay, while this is loading, so you can see this is the first time I'm logging in. I don't really care. Next, next, next. And accept. This is a brand new Windows 11 machine. I just created it 2 days ago. And so again, if you're allowing your end customer to do this themselves, or you're going to attempt to do it for them, the way to enroll is to go to settings. Remember, this is a machine that's not joined to the domain, right? So if you have computers that are already joined to the domain, you can unjoin it from the domain and then follow these same steps, and then use a tool like Forensic Profile Wiz to basically move your legacy domain join profile over to Interrupt's profile if you wanted to. I'm gonna go to settings, accounts. Okay, so this part's really tricky. You got to go down to access work in school, right? And then we're going to click on connect. Now, once you press connect, your initial pop-up is going to ask you for your email address. You got to make sure do not type in your email address here, right? If you set this up for work at school, you're just simply joining to Intune. You're not enrolling the device. Now, there's a alternative action right here, alternate action. And you're going to want to click on this, join this device to Microsoft Entra ID, right? If you just simply put your email address in here, you're going to enroll a device, causing you to not have full management access over it. And then to fix it, you have to go and delete the device and re-enroll it the right way. So I'm going to click on join this device to Microsoft Entra. And you have to type in somebody's email address that has a license to Intune, right? So this is the manual way to kind of, well, it's manual, but Microsoft calls it automatic enrollment, right? So you can see that the pop-up comes up, says, hey, are you sure you want to join this computer to your organization? You could join, and you reboot your machine after, and that's how you join any device to Intune as long as you have an Intune license, right? So nothing else in your tenant needs to be configured for this to happen other than you needing a license. Okay, so that's one way to join it, but let's say you're deploying a fleet of like 20 computers or 30 computers, right? How do you do it then? Now, there's a tool that Microsoft has. Let me just finish so you can see. Whoop, I saw it there. So yeah, this device is now enrolled, and if I want, I can just basically reboot the machine, and now I'm no longer logging in as my local admin. I could log in with any Microsoft Entra ID if I wanted to. All right, so really simple to kind of do. Just watch out for those couple of tricky spots where you might enter the email address in the wrong place, right? Always join to Microsoft Entra ID first. So what happens to an environment where which one? Oops. What happens to an environment where you have multiple computers and you need to join? Right now, I just typed in my email address to join that device. Well, I can only do that like about 15 times before I reach my maximum enrollment for that user. And as a global admin user, or somebody who's trying to join multiple devices, that's not the best way to do it. Right? So the best way to do it is actually to go to the Microsoft Store and download something called Windows Configuration Designer, right? And what this does is it actually sets up the enrollment policy and it puts it as multiple files on a computer. You can actually stick those files into a USB and physically plug a USB in to enroll a device. per machine, or you can actually drop that those files into a network share or a SharePoint and have somebody go and navigate to that share and enroll themselves. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So I'm going to go to the Microsoft Store and have to go and download this my Windows Configuration Designer. Okay, so Windows Configuration Designer looks like this, and you should go and install. Okay, so if you're an MSP, I'd recommend probably using this way. If you're deploying more than one machine, it's just much easier. And then you can use the same exe file to basically deploy more. Now, this thing looks pretty crazy, this tool, but it's actually pretty easy to use. Oh, should have downloaded this ahead of time. Oh, it's going fast. Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm going to open this application. And what you're going to do is click on Create, and under Create, go to Provision Desktop Devices. All right, you need to give it a project name. I'll call it Tune Join MSP. And you got a couple of options. There's not too many options, and you can actually leave a bunch of them blank as well. So here you get to name your machine. Again, if you're doing this at scale, it's nice to have create a username, a computer name using the serial number, and enter a product key. If you have a bunch of Surface Go computers and they came with Home Edition, you can actually upgrade them directly to Pro. You can set this device for shared user, meaning every time you boot up the machine, the last known user isn't pre-saved there. You can actually you're forcing the user to type in the username and password every single time. So if you have kiosk devices, that's a good thing. You can elect to basically remove all pre-installed devices. You can even set up the Wi-Fi SSID and password and set up the security. So again, if somebody works from home primarily and they all of a sudden walk into the office, you don't need to ask anybody for the Wi-Fi password. You can bake it all into the device. So when they walk into an office, it's already there, right? So you can kind of join stuff and roll into AD. Again, we're going to do it this way. Give it a local username and password if you like. Right, you can add applications, which is nice, right? You can set up the install path, add certificates, but when you're done, I got to build a token or get a bulk token. Oh no. MFA. Okay, well, I don't know what's wrong, but basically when you get the token, it takes like 2 seconds to get, and then when you finish, it basically dumps a bunch of files onto your directory that you specified in the beginning, right? There's also an advanced editor. You can open it, it's got a lot more settings. But you can pretty much define how your device is joined and enrolled, and then go ahead and set that up, right? So once you create that file, what you're going to do is go to your Windows device again, and I'll do this on my own device this time. Go to Accounts again, go to Access Work and School, and you see how it says Add or Remove a Provisioning Package, right? So you can click on that, and then, again, if you have a USB plugged in, it's going to automatically see that package and go ahead and enroll the device at scale, right? So again, if you're doing more than one device at the same time, that's probably the preferred method. Okay. So we talked about how to physically join the device manually using automatic enrollment, and then how to actually enroll a device at scale. So that should answer a lot of questions. So if you've never done it before, again, if it's a brand new machine, just follow the directions I just showed you. If you're on a machine that's already joined to the domain, you want to switch over to Entra ID, managed by Intune. You unjoin that device from your current domain. You're going to go and do what I just showed you, and then you're going to use a tool called Forensic Profile Wiz to actually take that existing legacy domain profile and move it over to Entra, so your users can keep their same cat background if they wanted to. Okay, so I'm going to show you actually now how to create a new Intune policy, right? So now you have a device that's enrolled. Let's start pushing down some policies, right? So we can now Nerdio has over 50 pre-canned policies out of the box to help you get started, including CISP policies and Microsoft Defender policies. but I'm going to simply create a policy that does something with Chrome and Edge, right? So I'm going to show you how to do it from scratch. So again, if you've never done before, don't be afraid. It's actually quite easy. So all you got to do is, again, have the right type of license, M365 Business Premium or Intune a la carte. And you can go over to intro.microsoft.com, log in as the client, and you're going to go over to, let's see, where is it? Okay, I'm going to go over to Intune.microsoft.com. So Entra is a new portal, so you can access some conditional access stuff here, but it's really just a shortcut to other portals right now. So if I go to Intune.microsoft.com, that's still where you kind of manage all your Intune policies. Right, so I'm going to create some policies to help you get started, just to kind of show you how a policy is actually built, right? So first thing you need to do now, you can go into your customer's portal, you can go do this directly in the MSP portal. It doesn't really matter where you create these policies, right? So my recommendation is actually probably do them in your MSP's portal, so you can import them into Nerdio and then use Nerdio to distribute these policies to multiple clients. So you're going to go to devices. And let's say you're trying to build policies for Windows, you're going to go over to configuration and then click create. Now, you cannot create policies directly in Nerdio. You have to create them inside of Intune and then go ahead and import them into Nerdio. So Nerdio could be that distribution mechanism for you, right? So the reason why we don't allow you to build policies within Nerdio is because Intune comes out with new updates pretty much on a weekly basis, and there's hundreds and thousands of different policies, and it'd be a full-time job for us to kind of keep up to date, right? So nobody allows any policy creation inside Nerdio. All policies are just simply JSONs that you can import. So again, I'm going to go log in, go to devices, go to configuration, and I'm going to pick the operating system that I want to create a policy for, right? So today we're going to create a policy for all Windows 10 and 11 devices, and I'm going to click on settings catalog. So the settings catalog is really cool. I'm going to call this into webinar policy for Chrome. Right, you're going to hit next, and then you're going to click on add settings here in the corner, and this left blade comes out, and it gives you lots of categories of policies, right? So if you're managing a BitLocker, you want to see all your BitLocker configurable policies, you just click on BitLocker, and in the bottom, it loads the settings, right? So when you click on the setting, you can see in the background, it just pushes that setting there, and then you can sort of turn it on if you want, right? So again, if you want to manage Bluetooth devices, there's just like 7 Bluetooth settings here. There's administrative templates for your group policy-like type of tasks, right? But the nice thing about this, you can control how your cameras work and cellular devices on a 4G or 5G device, how your screen works, eSIM, all that stuff. But the nicest thing about this screen, I think, is really the ability to search, right? So if I type in Chrome and I hit search, and here's my categories, right? I can just double click Chrome, and you can kind of see that when this loads, there's like literally 9 pages of different Chrome, like 516 different Chrome settings. All right, so the challenge for you is, for an MSP is really to come in here and say, hey, what do I even want to build, right? Because any policy I build here, I need to think big. I'm not trying to just build a policy for this one client, but if I'm going to do this and spend time on it, what policies do I want the majority of my clients to have, right? That's how I want you guys to think about this. So as an example, if you're building a policy of Chrome, maybe you want to allow only certain websites to be accessed. Right, maybe you want to allow the dinosaur game for when internet goes out, right? You can kind of go through this. There's again, there's like 9 or 10 pages of this, 500 and something policies with Chrome alone. You can search Edge if you want to build a policy for Edge. All right, there's lots of settings there as well. Just do a quick search. Yeah, so you got Edge. All right, so the recommendation is not to mix policies together, right? If it's policies for Chrome, just make it for Chrome, but I'm just showing you what the different policies are, right? You can search for things in the control panel. You can, hide the control panel if you want it. Like everything that you're used to doing in group policy and then some is all done through the settings picker, right? So I'm just gonna exit out of here, right? After I've picked all the settings I want to enable, I picked a dinosaur game and only allowed a list of URLs to be browsed by Chrome. I now have to enable it, right? So if I enable it, So some settings don't require anything special, but other settings like this one allow a list of URLs. I have to actually type in the list of URLs, right? So maybe I want to allow AOL.com, get Nerdio.com, and Microsoft.com. Those are the 3 URLs that anybody can ever visit on Chrome. If you wanted that, you can do it. Hit next. And here I'm not assigning any policy to anybody right now, right? I'm going to hit next. Again, I'm not assigning anything to any groups or device groups, and I'm going to click create. Right. So once I create the policy, that's basically how you create a policy, right? You can create as many policies as you want. Again, Nerdio has over 50, and a lot of security policies are already baked in. So if you want to get started with what we have, it's already pre-built for you. But I suggest you guys all come into your Intune portal, go to devices, and just play around, right? See what you can build. Sometimes just browsing through those list of different settings gives you some really great ideas as to where to start. So when I talk to MSPs every single day about using Intune, everybody's super excited to use Intune. But once they've committed to using Intune, now the real challenge is like, what do I build, right? What do I want for every client to have across the board, right? So a lot of times those are the challenges that I see, and that actually takes the most time, right? To figure out what you want, build it, and then use Nerdio to push it across all your clients. Okay, so that's how you create a new policy. Right, I can create a conditional access policy as an example. So conditional access policy is a different type of policy. If I go to, again, devices, you come down to conditional access. You can access it here, or you can access it back from the intro portal. So you go to intro portal, that's under protection tab in conditional access. Again, same view, exactly same view. So what we're going to do is create a new policy. Now, if you guys are very familiar with conditional access, you can kind of skip this step. But if you're not familiar with conditional access, I'm going to build a very simple policy to, I don't know, maybe block access or enforce MFA on a virtual desktop logon or something. Okay, I'm going to do that. See if this one loads faster. Come on, Microsoft. Maybe I can't show you today. Let's see. See if I can view this one. Nope, it looks like Microsoft won't cooperate today. All right, well, so if you can't build it one, Nerdio has around 12 that we already kind of built for you for different use cases. You can always contact us if you are looking for something specific. Oh, there we go. So something loaded. Let's see if this one. Okay, so they all loaded. All right, so to create a new conditional access policy, you give it a name, right? So let's say block or enforce MFA on all admin portals, Office, and Azure Virtual Desktop, right? So let's say that's the policy I want. So you would go and create a group to kind of either assign this to, right? So you can pick from a group that you have in Intro ID to assign this to. You can assign this to all global admins if you like, right? So that's the directory role. You can assign to guest users, or you can assign it to all users and make sure you exclude maybe the break glass account for conditional access, right? So you definitely want to be careful here, right? I see it maybe once a month. Some MSP accidentally blocks everybody or includes MSA for everybody, and including themselves, and locks themselves out, right? So you can do all users and exclude admin roles or break glass accounts, or you can simply just say, I want only MFA users to get this, right? And kind of do it that way. So we can make a rule that says this is for all users and exclude maybe all domain admins or global admins. Again, that's not what I'm recommending. I'm just showing you how you would sort of use this, right? So then I can set a target. I could set none or selected apps. Now, selected apps is kind of fun, right? You kind of now these GUIDs are actually pre-baked into Microsoft. So if you want to create an MFA policy to only block admin portals, you can click this, right? Maybe create MFA to block or access all Office 365 stuff. You can even search Windows 365, right? That does MFA across all M365 and Azure Virtual Desktop. Okay, change it. Oh, I must have removed it. All right, so you're gonna hit select. So select what you want from it. There's a lot of other things in here, like if you're using Salesforce, Salesforce would be named here. These are all showing you things that are either enterprise registered application or something else, right? So I think they just changed this. Select, and then you create the conditions for it. You can say, hey, I want MFA to happen everywhere except for known good locations, right? So I'm gonna say configure. I'm going to say all trusted locations, and trusted locations is a separate section inside of conditional access. You can specify by IP or by state or geolocation. Okay, you can say grant. I want to require all MFA. Now there's two types of MFA. There's regular standard MFA, and then there's MFA that requires different strengths, right? So this is the regular MFA. This is passwordless, and this is phishing resistant, right? So you can kind of read more about these two. But more and more, obviously, passwordless is sort of, I would say, the default standard now. Passwordless is something like number matching, and phishing resistance is like FIDO keys and stuff like that. So you can specify that if you want. And here you can say, I want to require a device to be more compliant. Otherwise, I can't access this, or device to be hybrid join, which we're not going to do. And then here it says, do you want to require all these things that I've checked multiple items? Then I require all of them to be selected before I move forward, or just one of them. All right, so you can kind of say one of them, and then you could say, you know, do I want to conditional access every single time, right? So Microsoft used to make it like minimum being 1 hour, but now you can do every single time, right? Again, if you do every single time, just be careful that Office apps isn't checked, because it will literally MFA every single time you do anything inside of Office, right? So the first time you make any type of conditional access policy, always do report only. So report only basically doesn't enforce it, but every time somebody hits that condition, you'll get a report of how many times they hit it, who hit it, from where. And then once you're confident that this works and it's not going to lock yourself out, you can then turn it on to create. Okay, so I'm actually going to turn that policy off because I don't know, I forgot what it did. I forgot what I named it. All right, this one. I'm gonna actually turn it off because I don't want this doing anything to my tenant. So that's how you basically create a policy, right? So so I've shown you how to create a configuration profile policy, which is like a device policy, and a conditional access policy. Again, there's multiple other types of policies, security, compliance. Those are much more straightforward to set up, because those are how you define a device to be compliant, or what types of security features you want to turn on a device. All right, so I've shown you two types of policies. So hopefully this is not as scary as some people think it is. Now, the next thing is, now you want to start using Nerdio, right? So it's the reason why somebody would use Nerdio is to take a policy you've created once, and then take that policy and apply it across the board to every single customer. So you can ensure that every single tenant is set up exactly the right way, right? If there's a new feature of OneDrive that comes out and you want to turn on that setting inside of Intune, you just do it once, and you could then take that policy and automatically assign it across all your clients at the same time. So everybody adheres to the same policies, right? It just makes troubleshooting from a help desk much easier. It makes, allows your engineers to kind of know that, hey, this is the de facto standard of my MSP, and every single client that comes in is going to look exactly the same way. It's much easier to troubleshoot. It's much easier for everybody to just understand how everybody's configured exactly the same way, right? It's one thing to document like crazy, right? But even any perfect documentation is somebody that doesn't follow it to the T, or somebody that misconfigures something, right? So to make this actually happen, you have to take those policies that we just created and actually import it into Nerdio. So I'm going to show you how to do that. All right, so this is the Nerdio portal. If you aren't up to date, you can go down to the update section on the bottom and make sure you're on the latest version. I am running 4.11.1 right now. And we've renamed a couple of things, right? So this used to be called Intune here. We've renamed it policy management. And so we're going to import the two policies that we just made, right? So the first policy I created was a configuration profile. Just going to go click on configuration profile. And what this does is, so you can kind of see how this works. Now, these are all things that we give you out of the box, right? So out of the box, you have a bunch of Microsoft Windows hardening policies. You have a bunch of sys benchmarks, right? Policies. So if I go to one, kind of see that this is a CIS benchmark for Windows 10. I can go to the policy itself, go to edit, and you can kind of go to the settings and see what this policy does. Right? There's literally 200 sys policies for Windows 10 enterprise computer settings. So if I expand them, and if you can read JSON, these are all the policies that kind of make a device out of the box Windows 10 sys compliant. Right now, just be careful. Don't just blindly apply this across the board. You have to know what it does, and if you want, you can actually edit it inside of Intune and re-import it by turning specific things off that you don't want. So again, these come out of the box for you, but just don't blindly apply it across the board. Right? You have to understand what it is that you're actually implementing before you start. So again, these are, again, CAN. A lot of them are CAN. So if you go to CAN policies, we have policies that kind of deal with wallpapers, disabling chat, disabling Windows widgets, Spotlight, setting up Edge to automatically sign in. So, every time you turn on Edge for the first time, it goes through that annoying like 5-step next type of thing before you can even use your browser. So some of these policies are really great for out-of-the-box experience for a brand new computer. Okay, so again, we're going to go back, and if you go to the bottom here, at the bottom right corner, you see a little import button, right? So if I click on it, it's going to allow you to actually pull the policy we just created. I think the policy we created was Chrome demo or something. Great. Intune demo. Okay, so this is the one we created, 1128, Intune webinar policy for Chrome, right? So I'm going to type in some change logs. So I'm going to say dinosaur game and approved URL, right? I can hit import. And then when I hit import, basically the policy is now added to the list and I can use it, right? So if I go to Intune policy, or I have to refresh it. If I can filter it by policies I've added in the last 24 hours or 30 days. Because I'm filtering if I can. All right, so here's the policy I created, Intune webinar policy. Now I can take this policy and assign it across multiple customers, right? Or I can put it in a baseline, which I'll do in a second, right? So now that the policy is created inside of Intune, right, imported into Nerdio, I can now take this policy and push it across all my clients just once, or I could push it across all my clients, and any changes to this policy that I make in the future automatically make sure that my customer automatically has it, right? So that's how you import a policy to get it started. Okay, so again, I'm importing new policies from Intune from the MSP's tenant, or I can do it from a customer's tenant. So I didn't show you, but in this dropdown over here, in the screenshot, you could have actually clicked the dropdown and navigated to one of your clients and actually steal a policy from them, right? So let's say you've already done a lot of the work for several clients and you don't want to reinvent the wheel. I could actually take a policy from a client, pull it back into Nerdio, edit it, right, and push that policy out to multiple customers. Okay, so now a policy, again, any policy you create inside of Intune, it's really just a bunch of JSON, right? So if I go back to any policy I create here, I can go to the dropdown, go to edit, go to settings, and actually look at the JSON of that what's this empty policy name. Go to a different one. You can actually see the actual JSON. Now you can certainly edit stuff directly from here. I wouldn't do this if you don't really know what you're editing here. Now Nerdio validates everything before we allow you to save it. But now if I create a policy that for example, I'll give you an example. Let's say wallpaper policy. Now there's two wallpaper policies here, right? One wallpaper policy is just the wallpaper policy for a specific URL, right? So this is a wallpaper that specifically uses this URL. So it's a picture of Clippy as the desktop background. Now, if I take this policy and I apply it to multiple customers, let's say all 50 of my clients, now all 50 of my clients are going to have this Clippy background, right? Which I don't necessarily want, right? I want the same policy that I created once, but I want it to behave differently based on specific variables that it can define, right? So what you can do in Nerdio is actually define variables where the values of something is. So there's a policy here that specified the Clippy wallpaper hard-coded as a URL. And then we have another policy that's very similar. If you go to this one, you notice that in the settings where the value of the URL was, we're actually looking for a variable. So this is really cool, right? I can create a variable and the value of the variable be defined something very specific for the client, but I could take this policy, push it across all 50 clients, and as long as there's a variable value defined, then it's going to actually replace this variable with the actual value of what it is, right? So again, this is looking for a variable called lock screen URL. So I'm going to show you in Nerdio how you would actually specify the value of that lock screen URL. Right. So I'm going to go back to accounts. I'm going to go into a customer. If you go down to the settings area, there's a little thing called portal, right? And you can actually add a secure variable. Now, secure variable in Nerdio is used for scripts for PowerShell, but we've also extended it to use for Intune as well. So if I use the name lock screen URL, I'm going to type in HTTPS, blah blah blah.jpg. I can create this variable. All right. So then anytime that the variable is used, it's going to actually. Oh, it's already that's right. Every time I call that variable, that value of that variable gets basically replaced with the JSON. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. If not, just throw some questions in there. So you can take a JSON and apply it to multiple customers, and then specify unique values for that variable, and have that the Intune policy behave differently depending on the client that you put it against, right? So, okay, moving on. How to roll back and update the policies, all right? So sometimes you can create a policy and apply it across multiple customers, and then realize later that it had some unintended consequences, right? And you want to simply just roll it back or restore to a previous backup point. And that's really what this allows you to do, right? So now every single change that you build in Nerdio captures and gives you the opportunity to actually specify the change by typing something into changelog. So let's say I have a configuration profile. Now I'm just going to look for a profile that has multiple versions. So you can see that these have one modified date, but then like this policy has one version of it. I'm just going to scroll through a couple and find one that has multiple versions. All right, so this one has multiple versions. Now, if I hit the drop down of this policy, I can actually go to status of this policy and see that, you know, this client airplane shop has version 2 of this policy, and it's completely valid, right? Winhart has the latest version 7, but this one has version 3, and version 7 is the newest version, right? So this person doesn't have the latest version. So I can hit update, and I can hit OK, and it'll automatically update them to version 7 of this JSON policy. Now, let's say I made a mistake and it's having some unintended consequences as a client. I can actually roll back and push this policy back, right, by hitting the same buttons. It's going to take a second to realize that it's been updated. But then instead of update, I'm going to hit roll back, and it's going to allow me to pick prior versions of this policy and push a policy back. So it's a really good way to kind of, you see a screenshot here. Right, I could take a policy and then roll it back to any prior version. Again, Nerdio takes a snapshot of every single change that it's made. And it's useful for those scenarios where maybe you did lock yourself out, right? And had you been using Nerdio, you can actually put the prior conditional access policy back in and save yourself a Microsoft ticket, all right? That takes about 3 days to resolve. So again, Nerdio keeps track of all your changes, imports, and updates to all policies. Mistakes happen, you can roll it back easily. If testing looks good, then roll forward easily as well, right? So you can update policies within Nerdio using this method. Okay, so this is another sort of innovation we came out with maybe 2 releases ago. But a policy baseline is a new thing we have that gives you the ability to group multiple policies together, right? So let me show you what that means. So you can see here that I was managing individual configuration profiles, right? And again, a customer can have tens if not hundreds of profiles if you kind of get pretty into it, right? But you can see that there's configuration profile policies, compliance policies. So again, so what makes a device compliant, you get to define it. What security features a computer needs to be compliant, right? So enforce BitLocker, make sure that Azure firewall's turned on or Windows firewall's turned on. You could have multiple conditional access policies. So what I can do is now go to policy baselines and create a policy with multiple little policies inside of it. So here I created an example called MSP HIPAA policy baseline. And inside this policy has 15 individual policies. So I go to the drop down on the right, go to edit policies. You can see that this has 6 conditional access, 4 benchmark policies, and a bunch of one drive and known folder move policies, right? So as an example. And you can create this policy, name it whatever you like, right? So obviously I named it HIPAA. So my thinking is that any healthier customer I have, I can now take this one policy that includes really 15 policies inside of it and assign it across multiple customers. I'm going to add the assignment and assign it across multiple customers, right? So all my healthcare customers can now have this baseline, and any policy I edit inside of these individual policies that reflect here will automatically push it down. Now, I have this baseline policy that's actually enforced. It's got 8 policies in it. I can obviously assign these policies to individual customers, but what I can also do is maybe check for compliance, right? That's really what this is. So I've created policies. Let me show you how to create a policy and skip that. And add a new baseline. So I'll call this Intune policy demo, right? I can force a baseline assign if I wanted to, or not. Hit Intune policy save, hit refresh. All right, so now it's here. You can see that there's no policies inside of it. I'm going to click on the drop down, go to edit policies, and then from here I can add as many as I want, right? So I can maybe increase the size to 100 policies, and this is showing me all policies here I have on the left-hand side. So maybe I want this policy, this policy, this policy. I don't know, some of these. All right, I'm gonna hit add, and you see I've added all my policies here, and I'm gonna click apply and close. It's giving me confirmation to confirm. So now this policy now has like 5 or 6 policies in it. So I can see here the task is pending building that policy baseline. And that's basically how you create a policy baseline, right? When you're ready to assign it, you're gonna hit assign and add assignments and pick the customer you want to assign it to. I can add it for the first time, or I can simply override any existing policies with similar names. Okay, so you can see this policies here. It's got 7 policies in it. Okay, so that's how you create a policy baseline. So a policy baseline is just basically a combination of groups of other types of policies that you can enforce across the board. And you can name these whatever you want. You can name it by compliance. You can name it by a specific customer, right? So maybe you have a healthcare customer that you want the basic HIPAA policies applied to it, but they themselves have separate policies. You can make two policies and assign them across the same customer as well. Okay, so now that you've assigned a bunch of policies to a customer, you got to make sure that the version is the right one, right? Meaning the latest version you have is actually what's being applied, and a policy is no good if it exists in a customer's tenant, but no group or users being assigned to use that policy. So this is where Nerdio can actually help you check for compliance as well. So if I go back to a policy, I'm going to use this as an example. It's a MSP sys policy for just, I guess, general sys policy, right? I'm going to hit the drop down. Again, if I go to status, this gives me a live report as to what's going on, right? So I'll let this load a little bit. You can see I've assigned this to 2 customers so far. If I hit this little arrow button, it's going to show me that in this policy I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 policies. The version I have inside the tenant matches the latest version I have in Nerdio, and that the sync type is set to automatic, right? So meaning if I change a policy or update one of these, disable widget policies and add something new to it, and this policy takes it and pushes it across, it's going to basically push it across all the way down to the end customer. And this last column here is indicating whether or not, this policy is even being assigned to anybody, right? So it's one thing to have policies synced down to the customer, but if you're not using it, it's really useless. So you know, when you start using this, you're going to have likely more than 7 policies here. You may have like 20 or something like that, right? And it's going to tell you each one what group it's assigned to and whether or not it's assigned to a group at all, or it's just not even checking for it. So it's really cool that you can kind of check for compliance once you've assigned a policy baseline down to a customer. Check my time. Oh wow, I am very behind. Okay. So I was going to show you how to add a application in Intune as well. So Intune could also be used for deploying applications, right? So if I go into a customer tenant, go to Winhart, I can go to the Intune portal and go to applications, and I can upload applications to here as well. There's two types, many types of applications, but the main 3 is going to be line of business applications, which are basically MSI files. It could be a Microsoft Store app, or it could be an application that you have that's like a not a QuickBooks, but like a Sage, right? You can actually package your own application and upload it into Nerdio. So I was going to show you how to package some, but let's go add. And if I have a line of business app, it's very easy. Just select the MSI from this thing here, upload it, right? You can assign it to a group as well if you want. If not, that's okay. And it's going to go and upload for you. So in a second, you'll see this little dialog box on the bottom. It's uploaded profile with that MSI. Now, if you're uploading a Win32 file, there's a conversion process that you have to do. It's very easy, actually. You just download the conversion tool. I was going to show you, but we're going to run out of time. You're going to run a command line to basically convert the file. It takes about a minute, and then you use the same process to upload. Right. So here's if you're going to search for it, it's called Microsoft Win32 Content Prep Tool. You just run a simple 1-line command. You point to the source of the installer, and converts into an Intune Win file for you. But again, Nerdio has unified app management that does this job much easier and much better. Right. So if you're interested in that, look at last month's webinar on that topic. And I wanted to show you how to manage endpoints, right? So I've shown you a bunch of things around managing policies, but if you go into a customer and you go to Intune and devices, you'll see actually all your Intune devices that are joined here, right? And so again, you can check for compliance, configuration, Windows updates, apps, right? Here's my Surface Go device at home. If I hit the drop down here, I can manage like all the Intune management tasks right from this menu. And what's coming out really soon is the ability to actually console in, right? So we're coming up with a product called Console Connect that's going to be included inside of the Intune SKU that allows you to also remote into a device and help an end user out, right? Again, without using your existing arm. So I click on properties and go to devices. You can kind of see all your devices, users. You can see what policies have been pushed down by user or device, compliance that it fits, any Windows updates that it's assigned to, any applications have been pushed down, recovery keys, rotation of keys. It's all done through here. Okay, so again, high level, the way to do it is to enroll a device, or you can enroll any or all of these types of devices. Once you enroll the device, your first step would be to create these policies within the Intune portal, or update the policies that you have existing, or use Nerdio policies, or actually import them from other people's GitHubs. You can do that as well. Once you import them up, you can either put them in a policy baseline and deploy them across multiple customers, or automatically or manually deploy each policy individually. Right, so once the policies have made it down to your customers, then you need to assign it to either a user group or a device group. Right, so devices can now join a group, and if you have a bunch of like Surface or Lenovo laptops, put in a group, and then assign these policies that you created. So maybe you created that the Chrome policy you want to apply to all Lenovo devices. You can do that all within Nerdio. Okay, so again, why use Nerdio? It's really providing you consistent policy management interface across all clients. Right, create baselines, create them once, apply them once, reuse them repeatedly. It's going to help you reduce the errors and the mistakes going to happen with manual implementation. Right, we're offering coming out in May something called Console Connect, which allows you to remote control right into any device that's managed in Nerdio. It could be AVD, it could be AVD multi-session, it could be Intune devices. Anything could use that. All right, so more and more Microsoft's really making Intune more like an RMM, and Nerdio is kind of filling in the gaps to really make it an RMM that MSPs can use. Right, so we also came out with Microsoft Defender capabilities, which is a next topic of next month's webinar. So we'll go into that a little deeper next month. And again, we're going to manage the devices across all customers real time with a lot of global views, and you know, give you the ability to roll back and back up policies as you manage and edit them. Okay, so Console Connect is coming out in May. Backup and restore for policy assignments coming out very soon. Solutions baseline for Intune, and solutions baselines for Entra tenants, right? So all the tenant backup, tenant management, all the Intune tenant management settings are going to be backed up and restorable within Nerdio coming very, very soon. Okay, so we have training camps, right? So if you like this content, I just kind of went through an hour's worth of content. But we actually have 16 hours worth of content that we train MSPs on. Around this topic and many other more, right? So these are our dates that we have them. They're scheduled all around the country, and the nice thing about them is that they're actually free to go to. And if you attend, we'll actually put you in a hotel for 2 nights free as well, right? So if you're looking at a date that seems maybe further away and you want to attend something sooner, convince your MSP to fly you out there, and we'll hook you up with food and or the place to stay for both nights. Okay. So the reason why I'm showing you this is most of us operate IT sort of like a 2008 mode, right? And there's all this new modern stuff that's coming out very, very fast, and it's hard to kind of keep up, right? So with Nerdio, it enables you to kind of manage things in sort of a zero trust model with Entra, AVD, Windows C5, Intune, very, very easily. So that's the world on the very right that we want everybody to kind of live in. But it's I know you guys want it. It's just difficult to kind of get there sometimes. And hopefully today's webinar kind of showed you, you know, how to actually do it and sort of the value of using Nerdio to do it along the way. So again, thank you so much for attending. I guess, Chris, we have a minute. And any quick questions that anybody's maybe asked that I didn't talk about
just
yet?
Some clarifications on once you import a policy and apply it inside of NMM, and then remove it from NMM, will it remove the configurations from the Azure tenant?
No, it will not, right? So unless no. So any policy you create in Nerdio, it sort of sits there as a repository. You delete it from Nerdio, it's still inside the customer's tenant.
And it also goes the other way too, right? So if you import into NMM and then delete it in Azure, it can still sit in NMM and be applied, right?
Correct, yeah. And then in that case, right, we know that sometimes engineers go into environments and maybe disable policies to troubleshoot stuff, but never turn it back on. Now, there's things that Nerdio will know that, and depending on how you set it up, whether you set up sync automatic or not, you can actually override any changes or turn a policy back on for you if you want.
Perfect. I think those were the main questions that I didn't get to answer.
Okay, great. Yeah, anything else? We'll send this webinar out. Any questions, throw them in the chat. And it's great doing this. I guess any questions around pricing? Usually it's a pricing question. Been covered, but if not, yeah, shoot an email to your Nerdio rep if you guys want to know more. Right, there's partner tier pricing available.
Yeah,
all right, well, thank you so much.
That should be good. Thank you, Tony.
Awesome. All right, take care.